let's look at some new school ways to escape the headlock. And by that I mean taking some of the older concepts that have been around in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, some of the older techniques, and we're going to put in some variations that have been developed in the last few years. One of the popular things that's being done now, thanks to Eddie Bravo and his students, is the twister. It's an old wrestling idea. We're essentially putting a wrist, neck, and hip twist on them. What's interesting is that from an instructional perspective, the headlock is one of the easiest ways to set up a twister. So if you want to teach people about that technique for later competition MMA, one of the best ways to teach it to them and give them a valuable self-defense technique at the same time is to use it as a headlock defense. On top of that, I think this is a really valuable headlock defense. It works really well, and it's very instructive on the power of leverage and hip control. It's one of my favorite teaching tools to understand how you can turn a seemingly bad position into actually a pretty strong position if you know the right leverage points. Let's take a look. So I'm in the headlock position. Now, a lot of the old school stuff is very good. It's well thought out. You know, I'm trying to hip escape away so that I can set up my heavy pressure release, whatever. But every time I scoot away, he follows me and jams his hips back into me. This is really common, and the classic response is to hook in and then begin your defenses. And that's a good thing. A lot of people have problems with this, though. They don't get enough control. They try to climb over, and the guy keeps fighting them back, particularly if they're really strong. So one thing that we can use this old school idea from and really soup it up is to figure four my legs like this. And if I can double hook like that. Does everybody see where this is going? I now have really, really strong hip control, so I don't need to climb myself over. Okay? So one thing you can do to show the power is keep this headlock fairly tight. I'm not saying this is the correct technique, but to demonstrate how I've changed a seemingly weak position into a strong position just by hip pressure. Well, just let go when it hurts. I can make him let go. Okay? Now, I'm not saying this is the correct technique, because with a much heavier guy, he may not actually let go, but he can certainly feel this hip pressure here. Okay? Now, what happens is instead of using that hip pressure to break this hold, which is really just for demonstration purposes, I put enough pressure on that his weight starts to come off his legs, and it's easy. Keep the headlock on. It's easy to turn him over. Now, does everybody recognize where we are? We're in the classic twister position. If I push my hips in and pull on his head, I've got the twister finish. There's a really instructive way to understand how powerful the use of your hip-to-hip contact can be, and there's a new school way, although it's an old wrestling technique that's become popular in new school jiu-jitsu. That's a good use of it for a lot of reasons.